Have you ever sat at your desk, watching the office politics unfold, wondering if maybe you were born in the wrong era? You speak the truth, act with integrity, extend your hand to help, but somehow it all turns against you. You're not alone in feeling this way. In fact, there's something deeply human in that disappointment. It's almost as if the world has been set up to punish goodness and reward pretense. You see others lying, manipulating, stepping over people, and getting applauded for it, while you, the one trying to do right, are labeled naive, difficult, even foolish. There's a cold irony in that, a quiet cruelty in how society twists virtue into a flaw. And it starts small. Maybe you refuse to gossip, to cut corners, to play those dirty little games people call just how it is. Suddenly, you're the outlier. People look at you sideways. They whisper, call you self-righteous, accuse you of not being a team player. All for standing up for something as basic as honesty. But what really stings isn't just their judgment. It's how quickly your actions, pure in intention, get rebranded as arrogance. As if wanting something better, something honest, is a threat to the established order. It makes you question everything. Why is doing the right thing so wrong? That's where it begins to crack. The illusion that goodness is universally valued. Because in truth, we live in a system designed to keep real strength contained, not celebrated, not respected, just quietly resented. The ones who question the rules, who try to live by a code stronger than survival instincts, get painted as misfits. The herd doesn't like the one who strays too far. There's comfort in uniformity, even if it means everyone sinking together. And then you see it in your own life. That family member who always has a new crisis, a new reason why their pain is more important than your peace. You try to help at first. You give. You sacrifice. But it's never enough. Your kindness becomes their currency. You're useful only so long as you're solving their mess. The moment you draw a boundary, say no or ask for reciprocity, you become the villain, the cold one, the selfish one. The truth? They never wanted your help. They wanted your servitude, and society echoes that lie. That being good means self-erasure. That strength should be silent. That power should apologize for existing. There's something devastatingly familiar about it, isn't there? How we're taught from such a young age to dim ourselves. Don't dream too big. Don't shine too bright. You don't want to make others uncomfortable. We're taught to clip our own wings before we've even tried to fly. And when we don't, when we dare to believe we're meant for more, there's always someone waiting to remind us of our place. Be humble, they say. But what they mean is be small. Because real humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less often, not annihilating your potential. You probably know someone who hides their brilliance to avoid the spotlight, who dumbs themselves down in meetings, who never shares their wild ideas because they've been burned before. Maybe that someone is you. Maybe you've been told that your confidence is intimidating, that your ambition is arrogance. So you've learned to shrink, to smile instead of speak, to defer instead of demand. But every time you hide your light, you reinforce a system that thrives on mediocrity, a world that fears the exceptional. Because the truth is, your gifts scare people who gave up on theirs. But real goodness, real strength, doesn't come from shrinking. It comes from growing into who you're meant to be, unapologetically, not at the expense of others, but in defiance of a world that keeps asking you to trade your fire for ashes. It's not about dominance or control. It's about creation, about refusing to let a broken culture define what it means to be whole. And that's why some people never stop suffering, because suffering became their identity. It's not about helping anymore. It's about martyrdom, about earning points in a game where pain is the currency. We've all seen it. People who carry their exhaustion like a badge of honor, who can't stop working, can't stop giving, can't stop bleeding for causes that never heal them. They don't know who they are without struggle. They think being tired all the time makes them virtuous. But it doesn't. It just makes them empty. There's a kind of twisted addiction in that. A high from being seen as the one who never gives up, even if it means giving up themselves. And it gets praised, this self-sacrifice. The world claps for those who carry unbearable weights. But no one asks why they're carrying them in the first place. No one questions the system that romanticizes burnout, that idolizes pain as proof of purpose. We've been taught that wanting joy is selfish, that choosing peace is weak, that setting boundaries is cruelty. So we endure, we overextend, and we call it love. But that's not love. That's fear wearing a kind face. That's resentment in disguise. Because eventually, that endless giving turns sour. It starts to rot. The one who always gives begins to keep score. They start to notice who doesn't reciprocate. And that noticing turns into bitterness, into quiet judgment, into the belief that no one is as noble as they are, that everyone else is selfish, lazy, ungrateful, that they alone know what it means to be good. And just like that, goodness becomes a weapon, a justification for superiority, a mask that hides the festering wounds underneath. And it poisons everything. You see it in the office. The overly helpful coworker who always has a smile, always picks up the slack, but secretly despises everyone around them, who never forgets a favor and always expects something in return, who claims to be a team player but uses kindness as a chess move. It's not real goodness. It's performance, a way to climb, to control, to collect moral capital. That's the real tragedy, when authentic virtue is tainted by agenda, when sincerity becomes suspect, when you help someone and they immediately wonder what you're after, when kindness is mistaken for manipulation, because that's what most people are used to, because the world taught them to be cynical, to doubt everything that isn't transactional. And that's how real goodness starts to disappear. Not because people stopped being good, but because they stopped believing anyone else could be. In relationships, it's even more devastating. You meet someone who seems perfect, so gentle, so generous, so attentive. But there's something off, something hollow behind the gestures, because it's all for show. All part of a script. They're not being good, they're being strategic. And once they've secured your trust, the real motives emerge. Love, it turns out, was just another way to gain control. That's the world we're in, where performance is prized over presence, where the loudest declarations of virtue hide the darkest intentions, where people master the art of appearing good because it's profitable, not because it's right. And it works. It works because we've made morality a market, because we've turned decency into currency, because we reward appearances, not essence. But there are still those rare souls who refuse to play the game, who choose to be good, not for applause, but because they can't bear not to be. They don't perform. They live. They walk through a world of masks with their face uncovered, and it costs them. The loneliness is real. The isolation cuts deep. You know that feeling, being the only one in a room who won't laugh at the cruel joke, who won't nod along to the lie, who won't betray their conscience just to belong. It's like standing still in a crowd that's marching the other way. And it hurts, but there's a fierce beauty in that solitude, a clarity. Because when you stop living for approval, you start living for truth. You start building a life that reflects your soul, not your social strategy. You stop asking for permission to be whole. And slowly you realize you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand firm, to be that one unshakable presence in a world that constantly shifts. And people notice, maybe not loudly, maybe not immediately, but they feel it, that calm steadiness, that unwavering compass. They may not understand you, but they trust you, because they know you're not wearing a mask. Because your yes means yes. Your no means no. Because you don't change with the tide. And that kind of integrity, it's rare, it's sacred. It's the real superpower in a world addicted to performance. Even in silence, even when no one's watching, you remain who you are. Not because it's easy, not because it always pays off, but because you've decided that living honestly is the only way to feel alive. That kind of goodness isn't about being liked, it's about being whole. And when the winds rise, when the ground shakes, it's that unshakable core that holds you steady. It's what allows you to keep showing up, keep believing, keep loving, even when the world gives you every reason not to. They call it resilience, but it's more than that. It's a kind of quiet rebellion, choosing to stay soft in a world that keeps trying to harden you. You're not unaware of the darkness. You've seen it, felt it. Maybe you've even carried it inside yourself for a time, but you didn't let it win. You chose to return to the light, not because you're naive, but because you're brave. It's the harder choice to care when it's easier to detach, to forgive when resentment begs to be fed, to keep your heart open when the world says, close it, protect it, harden it. You've likely watched people around you close up, like flowers retreating before a storm. Some of them used to be kind, generous, hopeful, but life chipped away at them. One betrayal after another, one disappointment too many. So they changed, hardened, decided kindness was a liability. That goodness was weakness. They called it growing up, but really they just stopped growing. They built walls instead of roots, chose safety over connection. And maybe that works for them. But deep down, you know you're not built like that. You can't pretend not to feel. You can't stop noticing beauty even when it's rare. You can't ignore injustice even when it's not your fight. And because of that, you carry pain, but also something precious, your humanity. And in this world of endless noise, endless masks, your humanity becomes a kind of light. People are drawn to it, even if they don't understand why. You've probably noticed it, how strangers open up to you, how people trust you with things they don't tell anyone else. It's because they sense something real, something safe. You're not trying to be good for points. You're not playing a role. You're just there, present, listening, caring without expecting a reward. That kind of presence is medicine in a world full of performance. But it costs you, doesn't it? Because the ones who care most often carry the heaviest loads. You feel things others brush off. You hurt in places others have numbed. And sometimes it makes you wonder if maybe they're right, if maybe detachment really is easier. But then you remember what you'd lose. That softness, that depth, that fierce compassion. It's not a weakness. It's your edge. It's what allows you to see clearly, to feel deeply, to live fully. The cost of caring is high, but the cost of not caring is a life half-lived. And when people try to pull you into their bitterness, when they mock your hope, or roll their eyes at your ideals, you've learned to hold your ground. You no longer need everyone to understand you. You don't need them to validate your path, because your compass is internal now. You've stopped outsourcing your sense of worth. You've realized that staying true to yourself matters more than fitting in with people who lost touch with their own souls. This shift, it's everything. When your goodness becomes self-chosen instead of socially programmed, it transforms. It's no longer about obligation. It's about expression. You're not being kind because it's expected. You're being kind because it's who you are. You're not honest because someone said you should be. You're honest because you can't live any other way. It becomes your art, your truth, your rebellion, and it's magnetic. People may not always understand it, but they feel it. And slowly, quietly, it begins to change things. Not in huge, dramatic ways, but in subtle, powerful ripples. A child who learns that love doesn't have to hurt. A colleague who realizes not everyone is playing a game. A friend who finally sees that kindness doesn't have to come with strings. Your life, just by being lived authentically, becomes a kind of permission slip, a quiet invitation. You can be real too. And yes, the world will test you. Again and again. There will be moments when it feels easier to just join the cynics, to laugh at the cruel jokes, to stay silent when something ugly is said, to look the other way when someone is being hurt. But you won't. Because each time you do, a piece of you goes dim. And you've worked too hard to keep that light on. You've learned to protect your energy without closing your heart, to draw boundaries without losing your compassion, to say no without guilt, and yes without conditions. That's power. Not the loud, controlling kind, but the deep, unwavering kind. The power that comes from knowing exactly who you are and refusing to betray that no matter the pressure. And it shows in the way you walk into a room, in the calm you bring with you, in the silence that somehow says more than all the shouting. People notice. Even if they don't say it out loud, they feel safer around you. They feel seen. And slowly, without even trying, you become a mirror. You reflect what's possible. Not perfection, but authenticity, integrity, realness. This is the kind of goodness that can't be faked. It's not sweet words with a bitter aftertaste. It's not smiles hiding silent daggers. It's real, messy, raw. And because of that, it's rare. And that rarity? That's what makes it sacred. So when someone tells you to toughen up, to stop caring so much, to play the game, you smile. Not because you agree, but because you understand. They haven't seen what you've seen. They haven't stood at the edge of betrayal and chosen to love anyway. They haven't lost everything and decided to build again, not with bitterness, but with open hands. You have. And that makes you dangerous in the most beautiful way. You're living proof that the world hasn't won, that it's still possible to be soft and strong, to be open and wise, to be good, not out of habit, but out of choice. And that choice, that deliberate, conscious choice to stay kind, it's revolution.